Hey there, and welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show, where we talk about anything and everything that has to do with building cohesive, vision-driven teams. I am Casey Watts, school impact strategist and the host of this show. Now, if you are here, then you inevitably are an instructional leader who wants to make change happen, even when change seems impossible. And you can do that if you have cohesive, vision-driven teams that have done clarity work. They know exactly where they're headed and how they're going to get there. These teams have done identity work, and they've built their self and social awareness skills. And they have done collaboration work, and they know how to move beyond faux collaboration to get to true collaboration where change happens and where people get on board. I'm so excited to bring to you conversations that help you to do exactly that. The work that needs to be done to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's conversation. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 73. This is actually the very first From the Field episode, and I am super blessed and excited to interview Jim DiDonato. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thanks, Casey. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to have you because we have a pretty cool connection that I'm hoping we can talk about as the show goes on. But tell our audience a little bit about who you are, where you are, and the work that you do.
Yeah, thanks. Jim DiDonato. I live in New Jersey. Been living in New Jersey all my life. I have an education. I've been 24 years in education, 20 in the public schools. Started way back as a teacher assistant in a facility in school for young boys and girls who needed a lot of support in life, and worked my way to a special ed teacher, reading coach, supervisor of instruction, director of curriculum and instruction, superintendent now for 8 years. And I also did some HR work in a larger school district as well. Happily married, 27 years, 2 kids, 25 and 20, and just living a good life.
Yeah, I love it. And so you're getting closer to retirement, yeah?
Yes, we don't want to belabor that, but yes, let's say 47, get to 55, we're getting there. We're in those single digits.
So let me ask you this. Do you envision yourself like really sticking with school, or do you envision yourself doing something continuing in the field of education as you move out of superintendency?
Yeah, not sure. Not sure. I love education.
Yeah.
I have a passion for international education as well, right? I'm on the board of directors for a nonprofit in South Africa for a school and orphanage for young students, and very passionate about that. So maybe if I venture into there, maybe hitch alongside you and do some consulting work. Love the university level. I would need my doctorate probably. So do I go back to school? A lot of different opportunities, but I think it's always about education, right? However we grow and however we improve. And so, I think when things fall in your lap well, then you jump at it. I'm at the stage where, I don't need to search, because every time I search kind of brings me right back to the public schools. And so I'm happy to be serving this small community now, and trying to make a difference every day.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm curious to know if you have been primarily in rural districts, or if you have been in larger districts. What's been your experience there?
Yeah, I think I'm a small town guy. I grew up in a small town in South Jersey, ended up in a small university, and what my first district was small town. In New Jersey, we have these the autonomy of the local school district prevails. Of course, we have our state Department of Education and everything that comes with that, but we have these small districts to large districts, inner city, rural, and suburban. But this, I was in a small district for 18 years, from teacher to superintendent. Went to a large district, the state capital in Trenton, 1,700 employees, and I was the HR director, and enjoyed that time. But it brought me back to another small district neighboring my hometown, and I feel like I'm that small town guy. I love, even as a superintendent, knowing as many students as I can, knowing almost every employee. There's something special to it. A larger school district, as a superintendent, you would just be doing probably the same, but you wouldn't have that intimate connection with your community as much. I think
Yeah.
that's what brought me back to a small district.
Yeah. And I know just from being in your district a little, even the little bit of time that I've been there, that you're definitely a boots on the ground kind of guy. So you are on campuses, walking the halls, in classrooms, all of that. And I also know that you focus a lot on building cohesive teams. So why do you think that's such a crucial thing for schools to build cohesive, high performing teams in your district?
Yeah, and I think I expect you to use the word cohesive a lot there, Miss Casey. Right? That's your thing, and that's why I love talking with you. And when you came to our district, why that means a lot, right? What does cohesion mean? In a small town, you want to be boots on the ground, and how do you not be micro? How do you still be macro as a superintendent and not be too micro? When there's a lot of things you have to be part of, because you don't have that large administrative team, and you don't have those as many teachers per grade level that can collaborate and build that. But in a small district, you can have a little more cohesion because it's a little more familial, right?
Yeah.
But you have to understand the parties even a little more, because it is a little more intimate in those relationships. And that takes a lot of work, right? In public schools right now, in all schools, there's a lot going on, right? I know we don't want to talk the C word, but that post COVID time is still here,
Yeah.
right? So people, as the teacher crisis is still upon us. I don't know about every state that might be viewing this, but I know in New Jersey it's still strong. And so how
Hmm.
do we support our staff so that they can support the students that they serve at a greater level? And that's a major challenge. Always should have been, but it's a major challenge right now. Retaining your employees, retaining the team, and trying to build
Yeah.
that capacity for their own learning, the capacity for team building, and the capacity to build in their students, right? Because
Hmm.
the capacity of students is different. I wouldn't say it's less, but it's different, because they're surrounded by so much information in the world. The capacity to enjoy learning and love it in school
Yeah.
has changed over time.
Yeah.
So part of the reason we brought you in to build some of that cohesion, and where does the starting point, the foundations that we have, like where are we? What is the current state that each team is in? Recognizing that state, and then allowing them to help us, grow forward. Right? If we don't
Yeah.
involve them in that process, there's not going to be cohesion. There just might be maybe a little more soldier like attitude versus that partnership attitude.
Right. Tell our audience how, like, some strategies maybe that you use to get some of your teachers and people involved in that process. How do you go about
Mhm.
doing that?
Well, when I came into West Hampton, right, you got to find out what are some of our goals. Are they true? Are they real? Are they authentic? Are they alive? We want to see where the starting points of where people are. As we came out of the pandemic, sometimes that professional development has been lost, or that cohesion has been lost, because
Mhm.
there was a scramble, right? And when there's a
Right.
scramble, some of the policies or procedures might fade a little bit, just so you can get, the most prioritize some of those policies and procedures. So starting point, and building that voice in each of our educators, transparently sharing what the plan is, why the plan is, and what we plan to do to move forward and to get there, and see who might jump at that opportunity, and then whoever doesn't jump, figure out why, right? Sometimes it's a
Mhm.
trust factor, depending on the prior leadership or their prior experiences, might not even be in the same district, but prior experiences that they had, that trust factor. And you just don't demand trust. You have to
Right.
build it within people. And so I've been here less than 2 years, and I haven't taken a poll of the trust factor, but the transparency will build that. The consistency will grow that. And I think that's working. Most to all educators, have a passion for what they do, for learning,
Mhm.
for becoming the best at what they want to be, become the best at what they can do, and for the sake of young people. You know what I mean? And you just
Yeah.
capitalize on that, and you find some of their passions and interests, and take it from there.
Yeah. And it sounds like you capitalize on the talents of your people. Like, really, especially being boots on the ground, you're recognizing where people thrive, how they thrive, what strengths they bring to the organization, and then you capitalize on that. And it's interesting because I was talking to someone today about turnover. We were talking about teacher turnover, but we were also talking about, it was actually a teacher, and she was saying how slow it feels like things take on. So if we're working on building, I don't know, a culture of problem-based learning or project-based learning, well, only catches on with some people. And when your leadership turns over, it's like you're starting all over again, because this leadership's coming in with a different vision, a mindset, different experiences, and so on. So do you feel like where do you feel like you stand? If you've been there for about 2 years, where do you feel like you stand in terms of progress made?
Hmm. Yeah, administrative turnover is a real thing, probably across all districts, whether small or large. Sometimes a small district, right? That could be your first stepping stone to the next space, right? Depending on who you are. Like, I realize I'm a small town guy. I don't have any other goals or need to go anywhere else, but it took me a while to figure that out, because I don't know if it's societal pressure, if it's something intrinsic that's like, okay, where's next? You accomplished A, accomplished B. By the time you get to E, you're like, I think it's time to move on. So I'm happy that
Yeah.
I figured that out for myself. As far as progress made, I think it's about direction. It's
Hmm.
about direction, figuring out the direction that, or helping others know the direction that we're going to go. If you don't have that, especially whether they're with administrative turnover and all of the other nuances that the Department of Education requires, or the parent need, or the fires, quote unquote, that you have to put out on a daily basis as a principal, or all the curriculum work that has to come in, or the SEL that's coming, SEL on the left side, and the discipline on the right side, and how do we bring it all together? And if you don't have that strategy, you don't build that strategy, and you have a direction, and then not have the turnover to make sure that strategy is focused. That comes from, especially in public schools, with the Board of Education, that they are supportive of that process. So,
Hmm.
whether it's we're building a small system, whether it's the math department or early childhood, or it's the whole district, I always like to look at the macro a little bit, building that strategic plan that is dustless and shelfless, right? I always talk about when I was curriculum director, how do you keep that curriculum dustless and shelfless? How do you keep growing it? It's living and breathing. And so we just finished a strategic plan. Board approved it just this month, and it took over a year to build because we did it as a team. We did it as a school team, but also community, some parents. That's what school's about, right? That's what especially a small town school is about, is building the community. And I think we did really well. There's always ways to improve and always things to do, but we set a mission, right? Everyone should know the mission at this point. I just made a video and put it out to the staff. I'm going to put it out to the community, but set that mission, define what our values are, that we believe they are, so we can grow them into our students and into our community, and then set those goals and set those actions and let it work.
Yeah.
That's a direction, right? And then from there, I can look at 100 different things to tackle on top of that. And so then prioritizing is so important, right? And not just because I want to prioritize it, but really what are the needs and priorities, whether it's the data or it's qualitative or quantitative data, all that stuff. But that team approach, if you don't utilize it, then you're in trouble. You're not gonna make that movement. So I think that's a good part. Just right now, we've getting the direction, and I think that's any business or organization, right? If you don't have someone at the helm, I was thinking of this the other day. Like if I'm at the head as a superintendent, and I'm the compass and the navigator, right? If I'm the navigator and the engine for the compass and hold on. I was just thinking, I just haven't really said this out loud too much. So let me start again. The strategic plan is like the compass and the engine, right? So it's giving us the direction. So if I'm the only navigator and conductor of this plan, it's never going to grow. So I asked the team, like, we all need to be the navigators and we all need to be conducting, because that's how this thing is going to grow in a much, much better way. And that I think I can, getting up that hill, right? Now I'm just extending my thought, but I think I can get up that hill. We all push it forward, right? And whether I lead from the front or lead from the back or lead from the middle, I can help this team be the best it can be. Superintendents another word is steward, right? Steward is a really cool word. I actually just saw that word. It was the security guards in an English Premier League soccer game, and they had steward on the back instead of like security. And I was like, what an interesting term. So people aren't like, oh, they're the police or they're the authority. But steward's a huge word. Like it's not my district, right? And if you're a teacher or you're a principal, or it's not your district. This is the district. This district belongs to the community, and so they help set the goals, and we steward their children to be the best darn human beings they can be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that analogy. And I'm glad you worked it out, because you know how I am with analogies. They're not my strong suit. I mean, I'm over here talking about stair steps sometimes, and they're not stair steps. They're just steps or stairs.
We were just talking about that, right?
Yeah.
When you came to New Jersey and you said stair steps.
I did.
And Marianne and I were like, what do you mean by stair steps?
Yeah.
So
That's
good. I'm glad you put that out to the world to hear. Thank you. That's pretty humble of you.
Well, I mean, I figure I could share that since you were working through that. Such a great analogy, which I absolutely am going to steal, probably, just so you know. I'll have to practice.
Please do.
Yeah. So, okay, everything that you've talked about, it just seems like so much that has to be done to make movement forward. And I want to know two things. Number one, how do you cast this vision? Like, once you have the vision, you've got that strategic plan created. How are you continuously casting vision to teams so that they can get on board? And then my next question is going to be about balance, but tell me a little bit about casting vision first. What are your go-to strategies for that?
Till nauseam.
Yeah.
When somebody says, "Yeah, I know, Jim. I know influential kindness, personal goals of students." When like I get that comment, I'm like, "Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
We've done it.
um, yes."
Yeah.
It's babies. I try. Hopefully, I use baby steps. Right. Uh, I'm an old man, and so What About Bob was I think it was in the '80s, early '90s, and Richard Dreyfuss had that book, Baby Steps. He was a psychiatrist. Hopefully, I do that. I like to try. Hopefully, I'm the tortoise. I help be the tortoise for this team, and because I am more of the hare at heart, like I'm up early. I'm moving and shaking. I can't sit on the beach for 10 minutes. I'm a hare, and
Mhm.
I'm like, ooh, squirrel. Like I am that guy that has issues. So to be the tortoise, to slow it down, and to make that's successes when you take your time and slow it down. You don't worry about that this year's state assessment score, and you have to do everything you can to grow 5 points because that's in some sort of goal you have,
Mhm.
because we know whether those state assessments are great assessments or not. Trying to do something in a single year is not sustainable. It's
Right.
possible. It's definitely
Right.
possible. I've seen it happen. And then the next year it can crash and burn. So sustainability is
Mm.
such a key factor. Not only the consistency, myself being here and trying to retain as many people as possible, um, but what is sustainable, right? Those
Mhm.
smart goals of attainable and relevant and all that. But I think the S could be sustainable as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Slow and steady. Try to avoid the distractors, right? Not full blinders, not full horse blinders, because you should be able to
Mhm.
see, but keep that direction. And
Yeah.
and hopefully people hold me accountable and they hold the board accountable that, like, how'd you just go into left field? Like we were headed toward that right center field. That's our direction. And I see this all the way over here. And if
Mhm.
I can't always hold myself accountable because sometimes you're blinded by the squirrel.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so how do you, like, the accountability measures that other people have, to say, whoa, it looks like you're going to the left. And I hope I have people on my team that trust me enough that if they tell me you're
Mhm.
far left right now, that they can trust and I can believe that I will thank them for that rebuke or that
Mhm.
redirection. You know.
Yeah. 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 I was going to say that takes a lot of trust and vulnerability, which also takes time to develop. Someone once told me after sharing with them some steps that I was thinking about for a campus and a group of teams, they said, okay, now take those baby steps that you've outlined and make even more baby steps from that big baby step, because that's not really a baby step. Like in my mind, it was a baby step, but for the people I was working with or stewarding, in your words, it was not, they weren't small enough steps and they weren't approachable steps, which is a problem with me being such a big thinker or such a broad futuristic person. I can see finish line or I can see what could and should be, but that means that I have to be able to communicate that really well to the people I'm working with, or to be able to communicate to them only far enough in advance to help them to buy into where we're headed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what vision is, right? We should see that finish line. We should see that finish line. We
Hmm.
should know the finish line we want to
Right.
get to. Those are important. Those are important. How many steps we have to take to get there, and if we don't get to
Hmm.
that finish line, June 2027 or whatever that date that we have set for, what's success? Is success the growth that we've made? Because there's always bumps in the road and there's a wall that's put up somewhere, or there's
Yeah.
these obstacles that we have to get around. So sometimes that takes an extra couple months, or maybe we got to take a step back because we're reflecting so much, right? We all talk in education. If you're doing mentors with a new teacher, like, keyword is reflection. Don't forget to reflect. If you over reflect, there's a Goldilocks approach to reflection. Don't over
Hmm.
reflect, but please reflect on your
Yeah.
practices.
Yeah.
Everyone got a 40, Is it the students, or is it something that we didn't do well enough and we should go back and do a better job of that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's nice to have that finish line, knowing it, but and celebrate your each success,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure people understand each step of the way.
Yeah.
You know, reiterate in a different way,
Yeah.
share it in a different experience. Let other people share it because maybe they hear it better from them than from me. Who's taking the lead on things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think celebrating success is hard for people too, for whatever reason. And I'd love to know your opinion on this. But some of the things, like even in working with your district, for the most part, the teachers that I've worked with are high achievers. And so they're always thinking about what can be better, what can I do better, how can I improve student learning, how can I improve test scores, etc. And when I ask about how are you going to celebrate success, it's like, I don't know. There's not a response for it.
Mm.
So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm terrible at celebrating success.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I'm terrible at patting someone on the back with the attaboy kind of statement.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes maybe people would think that's fake, you know, like hey, you're just congratulating everybody. I'm terrible at it. I even, another movie is Hancock, Will Smith.
Yeah.
Um, I'll share that I told my new team here in West Hampton, my new administrative team. I put on the video of Will Smith. You know, you have to watch it. But when he, who was it? Jason Bateman had to teach Will Smith how to say good job, and he's just like,
Mm-hmm.
good job. He's telling everyone, good job. And I'm like, I put that video on to say, guys, I know my weakness. My weakness is not saying good job. I have to work on it
Mm-hmm.
because I do need to have a little rah rah in me and a little bit of cheer,
Yeah.
instead of just being driven for success.
Yeah.
But there's also gifts to that, right? There's gifts to that constant motivation and keep chugging along, failing forward. Hopefully I'm a fail forward kind of guy. I might get depressed for 10 minutes and then jump back in and move forward. But I am terrible at that. So I don't have that answer.
Yeah.
But I know that I have to work on it. And I know that comes with, maybe I put that on to someone else. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the right person for that, then
Yeah.
maybe that comes, like, I feel like principals, you know, can have that raw, like that's the rah position. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna blame principals if they don't celebrate.
Yeah.
Um, because because I blame myself every time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure how, but those little successes, right?
Yeah.
And as teachers, we don't always get the thank yous, right?
Right.
Educators don't always get thank yous,
Mm-hmm.
until that one student comes back 20 years later and they say thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and I should have done that to my teachers when I became an educator.
Mm-hmm.
My former teacher, I talk about them all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
Me too.
can you
Me
can
too.
you name can you name all of your elementary teachers?
I cannot name all of my elementary teachers. No,
Hmm.
I
I
actually.
asked that question to teachers for some reason, or
Oh yeah.
educators. I don't know, because I can, and I'm like, huh,
Yeah.
I can't remember like yesterday, but I can remember my
Right.
teachers. That's
Right.
important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I only remember, I have a terrible memory, like from years back. I remember very spotty things, and sometimes the things that I say I remember are not actually reality. It's like a dream that I had or something. So that's kind of a problem. But if I don't remember names, I remember faces and I remember how I felt in their classroom or how I felt when I was around them.
Yeah.
So I've got that.
And, you know, maybe that's something to work on in schools, right? Parents,
Mhm.
like tomorrow is, I think it's National Bus Driver Appreciation Day. You know, and I
Yeah.
saw that, or someone went to a workshop and they were like, you know, tomorrow, next week is this. So I sent it to the principals. I'm like, hey, what can we do for our bus drivers? They're not our bus drivers. We hire another a company. And I'm like,
Mm.
bus drivers probably never get a thank you.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
they
Right.
probably get less thank yous, and what a job a bus driver has, right? So
Yeah.
going to work on it, Casey. I'm going to work on
Yeah,
it.
and you're right. Like I think too. There's a book by Andy Stanley, and he talks about it's called. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's probably on my shelf somewhere. Oh, Making Vision Stick. And Andy Stanley, one of the parts of Making Vision Stick is celebrating systematically. So the idea is that you are thinking about, with your leadership team, with your organization, how exactly are we going to celebrate this? Because what gets celebrated gets repeated. And it's not a habit we get into. And I am exactly like you. It does not come naturally to me to galvanize people or to celebrate them. But so I have to really plan, how am I going to celebrate it so that it's authentic and it's not just a, sticker on the wall and we see it and then we move on and it hasn't really changed much.
Yeah, it's important. I think
Yeah.
children need it, adults need it,
Yeah.
humans need that. One teacher, she's almost retiring. She's going to retire in October. And she taught me when I was a new administrator, a good friend of mine. She's like, you got to validate people.
Mm. Yeah.
I
I
texted her the
do.
other day. I said I used the word validation the other day. I told someone to validate. And I'm like, wow. So like that word sticks to me, right?
Yeah.
Celebrate, validate, recognize, like, hey, you come in every day to do the best you can. Some days are harder than others, right? And we wake up. So, all
Yeah.
right, that's a goal for both of us. We'll put it
Yeah.
on, and we should hold each other accountable. All right.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, when I was a teacher in the classroom, that was one of the things, and I knew going into my summative, like my debrief with the principal, that she was going to say, you are great at this, this, and this, and we need to focus on positive reinforcement. I was like, yeah, I'm really great at coaching and providing constructive feedback and coaching students, but the positive reinforcement just wasn't there because it was I'm always thinking, okay, what's next? Let's move forward.
Right.
So tell me about,
Slow down and smell the roses a little
yes,
bit, right?
yes,
I'm sorry. Go
absolutely.
ahead. You're up.
Yeah, no, tell us how you balance it all. Like I said earlier, there's so much that you're talking about that goes into what I see it as is like you have a team of teams. That's what you're working toward, is this school functioning as a team of cohesive teams. So how do you balance all of the work that goes into doing that without losing your mind?
So you're just unpacking all of my weaknesses right now, Casey. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Working on that as well. The early morning is the best time, right? As long as you don't stress about getting up and and uh, and enjoying that cup of coffee and getting on that computer or reading something important, and taking your time. Luckily, my kids are older and they don't require my attention, right? Um, as others have to worry about their children day to day. I just have to worry that I praise my children once in a while and I make sure that they're safe and at least enjoying life the best they can. So that's a real bonus. And my wife is amazing because she knows my hours. One time when I was getting a new job from my previous district, which I was so passionate and loved this so much, but it was just time to go, in my own mind. So I think I did a decent job there. And my son said, maybe you should just care a little less about the next place. And I'm like, I think I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
And like 3 months in, I called him. I'm like, dude, I can't help myself. Like, I just care about what I'm doing. Like, I think I would try to be the best Amazon boxer there was if I worked in the Amazon warehouse, right? I
Yeah.
find new strategies and systems to pack that box better. So I just geek out to education, and I can't help to try and help the staff and the students and the parent do the best they can. So and education's tough because there's never really an end point, right? There's no quota really.
Yeah.
A student gets here. Oh, we got a child on grade level that was 2 grades behind. Let's celebrate. But there's still more to do. Like this
Right.
child still has more potential capacity to grow even further. So
Yeah.
there's really no quota. And I think that might be going back to the previous one, why maybe some of the teachers struggle. They're like, yeah,
Yeah.
great, but he's still
Yeah.
not where I know this child can be, right?
Right.
Um, but you gotta have self time, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
I'll be advocate for prayer time and meditation time and exercise. And I'm a big outdoors person. I love my skiing. I love my mountains. I love being outside in my garden. Like those are the times that I can meditate, relax, talk to God, talk to myself, try to think about positive things. So take that time. I always say when I go away for a few days, I find out I miss my family,
Mm.
right? When you're like
Mhm.
entrenched in the system so much, sometimes you're just not thinking about how much you love people or how much you care or that you miss them. And you go away for 3 days, you're like, huh, I do miss
Yeah.
my family. I do miss my job. I do miss so taking time. I'm a big attendance person, right? If anyone asks, like Jim's talking about taking days, but sometimes you need to take that time. And thankfully, like some people have July and August, right? Sometimes people
Mhm.
have. We do get some of those other vacations or holidays to take that time and energize and get
Yeah.
re-energized.
Yeah. I love it. Because you are, I would say, and I've seen your office. I know how organized it appears to be. I also know there are sticky notes probably right there in front of you somewhere with.
I moved them for this. I made sure they weren't in this view right here for us,
Dang.
Casey. I don't know what's sometimes things are written on but yes, you should have
Yes.
saw Thursday. You should have saw Thursday. It
Yeah.
was it was stickies from heaven everywhere,
Yeah.
just falling down.
Yeah.
Different colors, different sizes.
Hmm. Yeah. So to each his own, because you could be the sticky note person. You could be the actually. I have one notebook with the list of things. That's not me, by the way. I'm definitely sticky note. There's a sticky note everywhere. I actually have in my bathroom. I have an expo marker that I can write on my mirror because I'll think of something and I'm like I have nothing to write on. Let me just write on my mirror. And I actually wrote on a package the other day. Just I don't know what I even wrote down, but it was a thought I had to write it down and I didn't have anything around me, so I just pulled a package out of my drawer and wrote on it. But with all of that said, everyone organizes in his or her own different way, and I know that that's so important, especially when you're striving to be the instructional leader that you want to be. I know that instruction is really important to you. So with all of that said, what is a takeaway for those instructional leaders who are trying to stay organized, cast vision, bring their people in? What is a takeaway you have for our audience tonight?
Mm. Yeah. Well, know who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Know who you are enough and keep learning about yourself and what makes you you, right? Authentic leadership is key. um when you sometimes I perseverate over a decision, like make the decision, move forward, because you're not going to make every single one right. Know how your
Mm-hmm.
brain works, right? Because if you don't know you, like that self-awareness, I guess, is a piece.
Yeah.
Helps you understand other people better, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
understand yourself and take time to understand others, and um, sometimes take a step back and reflect on what's happening. Um, we have a lot, whether no matter what position of leadership you are, from parent to superintendent to manager, whatever. Um, there's people that depend on you, so that could be anxious. It could be the weight on your shoulders. Find other people to work with and share. That burden should be shared. But know
Mm-hmm.
how your brain works, so that take all the books that you have on your shelf, read them all, as many as you can, and then reflect. How does that relate to you? Right? Don't
Yeah.
try and be that other expert, because you're not going to succeed as well. But take some of it, the good. Oh, I'm not going to use that because my brain would never outline well. I remember in
Mm-hmm.
high school, I had when one of the teachers showed me the web versus the outline. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
thank you Thank you, because it's all over the place, and I'll eventually make all those connections,
Yeah.
and then people will look at it and be like, "Wow, my brain doesn't work like that." Well, let me figure out how to help change that web into an outline. But if I don't
Mhm.
do the web first, it's not going to happen. If I don't write it down, sometimes I write things down versus put it on the computer because my brain works by putting it on paper. It comes back to my brain, right? But that changes for everybody. So know
Yeah.
yourself, be authentic in who you are. You were given the position, provided that position because of you, not because of somebody else or
Mhm.
someone else that you were trying to be. People can see through that.
Yeah.
Um, and allow other people to know who you are, right? A little bit of
Yeah.
vulnerability, cautious vulnerability. I
Mhm.
I say I'm purposefully gullible, but it's a positive because I want to live that way. But there's also a cautious vulnerability, so you don't put yourself out there too much, right? 80% of you is a good number,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
100% of you nobody wants to deal with, but 80% of the people care about you and they want to work under you or with you or beside you. 80%'s a good number. They'll
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Love it. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me tonight. This was awesome. As always, I love our conversations. And if someone in our audience wanted to reach out to you, where would they find you? Is LinkedIn a good place or other places?
LinkedIn's probably the best place. I mean, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but like just to check out the latest, quick ski video or something
Yeah.
along those lines. So LinkedIn is great. And I just want to thank you for everything that our relationship over the past year. This was the easiest video I've ever been part of or show I've ever been part of because you just have such a great way to work with people. The way that you connected to the team, my team this year, and connected to me makes a big difference. So thank you for everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I'm excited for the next trip up there. So, okay, audience, this has been great. Jim, thank you so much.
All right, have a great night, Casey.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Hey there, thanks for joining this episode. I would love for you to do me 3 solid favors before you head out. Number 1, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great guests and content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Number 2, share this show. Share it with your like-minded colleagues and friends and those leaders who are eager to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. And finally, connect with me on all the social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with Casey on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Until next time, go off and create teams that leave people feeling inspired, empowered, and eager for more each day.